If your cold emails are still landing in spam, it might not be your copy, offer, or lead list. It might actually be your system. In today's video, I'm handing over the exact system that we use internally to get a lot of replies, book a lot of meetings, and overall get a very low spam complaint rate with Instantly AI. Now, most Instantly AI tutorials just show you how to send emails, but in this video, I'll show you how to build a machine that keeps on working and compounding over time instead. And this is going to include how to set up the domains, how to connect the email accounts, what are the best warm-up settings, how to best appointment set leads, and overall, how you can automate everything, put it on autopilot, and not have to worry about it again. And if you're tired of guessing, or it's the first time that you're using Instantly AI, I'll actually pull back the curtain. I'll show you the engine. I'll show you the operational DNA of all of our systems that actually convert cold prospects into clients. Now, you may be asking yourself, why listen to me in the first place? And I'll actually tell you why. We've been sending cold emails for the longest time ever. We sent over 10 million cold emails for ourselves and over 250 clients. We consulted a lot of companies on how to do cold email. We came up with a lot of the frameworks that are out there in the industry nowadays. And actually, I'm not going to hold anything back. I will show you how to run this machine like a pro. So that by the end of this video, you know exactly the next steps and how you can replicate the system into your business. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. And first of all, if you want the exact roadmap, checklist, or presentation that I'm showing in this video, just drop a comment down below or send me a DM. Either way is completely fine, and I'm happy to send this over to you. So to start off, let's build the foundation. Let's understand what we're going to cover in this video. First, we're going to talk about how do we build the base being the domains, the accounts, and the settings for those accounts. Then, how do we deploy our army? And that is going to be the scripts, leads, and the overall campaign logic. From there, we're going to capture the intel and understand how we use analytics and inbox placement tasks to maintain our system. And of course, we're going to refine and scale from there. We're going to understand what's working, and we're going to scale it through automation, API work, and very advanced tactics. Now, let's start with building the base. First things first, the foundation, domain and email accounts. I'm going to show you the exact inbox health triangle that we use in all of our companies, which is actually very simple to understand. It's going to be at the very top, volume control, which is very low volume of sending, and I'll explain why. Then domain age, establishing a very good reputation. And then warm-up, proper account preparation. This is where most companies do everything wrong. And just to emphasize this point, I have on average 2 calls a day where the only thing I fix is their warm-up settings and their campaigns start performing again. So you will definitely want to pay attention to that part. I'm guaranteeing you, if you haven't been doing this for a long time, you're probably doing this wrong. And we're going to cover this after we finish covering the volume control and domain age. So first of all, volume control and domain age. Let's first understand that if you're sending cold emails, our baseline goal is to land a primary inbox. We can agree on that, right? So if we want to do that, we got to understand what would get us to otherwise land on spam. And what would get us to land on spam? Let's break down the definition of spam by Google and Microsoft. They were the ones that defined these terms. We have to be sending emails in bulk, and these emails have to be unsolicited. So if you were sending email marketing and you got an opt-in from someone on your website, that is no longer cold email, and that is not spamming because they have opted to receive your emails. But when we're sending cold outbound, we don't have the permission to contact them, and therefore we are actually spammers. But what we're going to effectively do based on information I'll share with you in this video is set up a system that doesn't look like it's sending emails in bulk and that these emails are unsolicited. So what does that actually mean? It is very simple. We're going to set up very well diversified domains and emails that don't connect to one another. And we're going to send very low volume from each so that it doesn't look that we're sending bulk emails ever. And then to break the unsolicitation part, we're actually going to apply a few tips and tricks on our cold email scripts and overall campaign management strategies. But we're going to get to that when we talk about deploying our army. So let's stick to volume control and domain age first. So let me actually open Instantly and show you a few of these things. Now, I have opened here a live account. This account has it actually has 670 email accounts in it. This is one of the accounts that we manage. And I'll just show you the options for sending up domains and emails. So first of all, we're going to click on Add New, and you're going to be presented with 3 options from Instantly. The first 2 options are done by Instantly, and the last option is done by you. I explained to you the difference between each of them and which one I recommend that you follow. So starting with pre-warmed up accounts. Pre-warmed up accounts are accounts that Instantly has already set up. So they bought a domain, a generic domain. They set up an email account under it, and they let it warm up in their own warm-up tool, which you're going to see in a second. And from there, they let it sit for 21 days, and then they let you take over these accounts. So 21 days plus, by the way. What's the benefit of using these accounts? The benefit is that if you really need to pump out more volume in your campaigns fast, or you need to get a client started fast, or you just want to test something very quickly, you should be using these accounts. They're more expensive, but you can launch things fast. That's, in our opinion, the only true benefit of using these accounts. We don't use them long term because they're not branded, because they don't have our names. And there is a lot of benefit to using branded and your own name in your cold email campaigns, which I'll tell you later on. So we use these accounts as a band-aid more than anything else. Still recommend, if you're starting out and you don't want to have to deal with anything or wait for warm-up, try these accounts. Now, the name of the game is always diversifying. You want to become this Hydra. If someone chops one head off, just two heads pop out, and you're just invincible, unless they literally burn you down. But the goal is that we set up a system that if one thing fails, that is not a weak link that makes everything break. If it fails, whatever, we have another link, the chain is still intact. And that is by setting up done-for-you email setups and connect our own accounts. Now let's talk about the done-for-you email setup from Instantly. What they do in this case is you give them the domain that you want, you tell them the name you want on your accounts, and they set everything up for you. When I say set everything up for you, that means the DNS records, that means the profiles, that means connecting everything to the right place, and etc. Now, the benefit of using these accounts is if you don't know how to set up a domain and email account yourself, or you don't have the means to go through the hassle, you don't have team members in place that can do this for you, then you go for the done-for-you email setup. Our only recommendation is if you do that, make sure you're constantly buying done-for-you email setup accounts, and you're diversifying through them in case one of them burns, you just replace it with another one and you keep on going. Remember again, you got to become a Hydra. If they chop one head off, you pop out with two. And that is the goal we've done for you email setup accounts. Don't just trust them to last forever. Actually keep on buying them so that you can keep on replacing the ones that stop working at some point. And now, the last option, which is what we do the most, mainly because we have a team in place to set up accounts ourselves, and these are the accounts that tend to last the longest. We set up enter-detect browsers, we set up diversified IPs, diversified phone numbers, diversified personas, and we create all of this in very diversified admin panels so that our systems are more indestructible than any other system that you can find out there. Now, not everyone will have the time to do exactly what we do. And by the way, if you want to know more about how that system works, just check out the video that will link up here. It will break down the exact steps and everything that's required to set up these accounts, but they tend to last longer. We haven't burned pretty much any of these accounts in over 2 years, mainly because they're very well set up and they're meant to last, but they take a lot more effort up front. And that would be Google and Microsoft 365 accounts. So again, if you're curious to learn about that, go check out this other video. But for the sake of today's video, just analyze the options, weight the options that I just presented to you, and choose between pre-warmed up accounts, done for you email setups, choose start, and then once you have more time, or if you have the team already, you connect your own accounts to Instantly. Now, what happens once you have connected them is that you have a list of them in the warm-up section, which is under the accounts tab. And let's say we open one of these accounts. First of all, or I should close it again, you want to pay attention to this flame icon. If you have this green flame, it means that you are a regular account in their warm-up pool. Now, when you have this blue flame, it actually means that you're in the high-end warm-up pool, which is where you want to get to. And you only get there with very well set up email accounts that have all of the DNS records that were pre-checked by the Instantly team. So if you have done that, please contact their support and ask them for access to the warm-up pool. You maybe they have to pay a bit more for that, but it is worth it. Now, when you buy Instantly set up accounts, you get granted the access to the premium warm-up pool already. Now, let's look at the settings themselves. We will open one of the email accounts. Let's open the settings and I'll present to you each of these settings right here. Starting with, of course, first and last name. These are very simple. You put your first and last name. I don't recommend using any AI-generated personas, and the reason for that is very simple, because one thing you will notice with cold email campaigns is that they are amplifiers of what you currently have existing. Meaning that if you have a brand and you are Googleable, meaning if people can find you on Google, you're more likely to get replies because people will trust you. Why? It's very simple. Think about it this way. If you received a very good cold email today and it's like an unbelievable offer, really good, what would be the first thing that you would do? You'd probably Google this company. You'd probably look them up online. You look at their website. And the same happens when you're creating these personas. You want to create personas that are Googleable, they are findable, and they are trustworthy. So therefore, we recommend using real names, real accounts. Now, the account signature is something that we don't fill out on Instantly, mainly because that is a way that you can get your signatures fingerprinted. something we're going to talk about later on when we talk about copy. But what it means in summary is that we don't want to have only one signature, we want to have many, so that if Google and Microsoft understand that we're doing cold email, they don't flag our signature, right? That is one of the ways they can flag you. So we don't use this feature right here. Then we have the tag feature. We definitely use this a lot, and we use this to define each and every single batch that we set up. You can use names in here such as Microsoft, GoDaddy, to define where you bought the email accounts and domains from. You could use the number of the batch that you have. We use the number of the batch. And also one thing that you will see in the live table, in the live warm-up table that I'll share with you, is using tags to define the stage that this account is in with the warm-up. For example, one stage would be warming up for the first time, meaning that you gotta still wait for this account to be ready. Another tag would be ready to use. This means that this account has already finished the warm-up, but is not in a campaign yet. And the third tag is in a campaign, running, right? And that indicates that you have already added this account to a campaign, so you don't confuse and add this account to another campaign later on, unless you're advanced and you know actually how to do that effectively without throttling the account. And another tag that we use, and this is the last one, is in recovery. If we notice that an account is having a lower reputation overall in the warm-up pool, or overall having worse deliverability than other accounts by the tasks that I'll show you how to implement later on, then all we do is just put the recovery tag and leave this account alone for a while, just in the warm-up. Now, don't worry if you don't know exactly how that works yet. You understand that as we go on and as I explain this further. So let's start talking about the warm-up settings themselves. First of all, you want to look at the daily campaign limit, and this is just the limit of emails that you can send in your cold email campaigns, obviously. The number that we use here depends on how much we're sending in the warm-up. And one thing I'm going to present to you soon is the Seesaw warm-up technique, which is actually very simple to understand. If you're warming up your account for the first time, so let's say your daily campaign limit is set to 0. So you just bought an email account, you put it to warm up, you're not ready to start sending. Now, why do you need to do that in first place? It's very simple to understand. It's because as if you were a teenager and you got your first credit card. You don't have a credit score yet. Banks don't know whether to trust you or not. And therefore, you gotta first buy some small things, pay the bills on time, and build your credit over time. This is the exact same thing that we're doing on the email accounts. We're setting them up, we're letting them warm up and send a few emails back and forth, get replies, look legit to build their credit score, right? Now, let's come back to the Seesaw method. The Seesaw method is when we're understanding that we already built a reputation, we have a good credit score, and now we just don't want to ruin it. So, if our credit score was, let's use cold email terms here, we were sending 50 emails per day in the warm-up and getting a 30% reply rate. After we launch a cold email campaign, we want to maintain the 30% reply rate, or credit score. How do we do that? Is by forcing replies coming from the warm-up. Now, how does that tie into the daily campaign limit and the warm-up limit? It's actually very simple. You will want to send low amounts of emails so that you don't have a high spam complaint rate, and I'll give you the number soon. And you will want to compensate for the lack of replies coming from the emails you send in the campaigns with emails going out in the warm-up. So now let's just look at real numbers. Let's say I'm sending 50 emails per day in total per email account. And I'm going to send 25 emails in the campaign, and I'm going to send 25 emails in the warm-up. Now what happens is I'll look at what is my reply rate in the campaign. Let's say it is you're getting 1 reply a day from those 25 emails. Now what I want to do is I want to get the other replies I need to get to 30% of the 50 emails I'm sending from the warm-up, okay? So if I'm sending 25 emails in the campaign and getting 1 reply, and I'm sending 25 emails in the warm-up, I need to get 14 replies from those. Why 14 replies from the warm-up? Very simple, because 30% of the 50 emails per day that you're sending in total in this account is 15 replies a day. So if I get 1 from the campaign, I need to get 14 from the warm-up. Rewatch this part of the video if you didn't understand it completely. It's extremely important that you understand this. It's one of the most important premises of maintaining account for the longest time and making warm-up work overall. So now let's get back to the actual settings that you want to use. Let's say I'm setting up this account to warm up for the first time. I'm going to put the daily campaign limit to 0 emails. Minimum waiting time, I can put to anything that's above 10 minutes. That's the recommendation that we have. Campaign slow ramp up is a new feature that they have. And overall, we keep it disabled just because we like to change the settings of how much we're sending the campaign gradually ourselves. But if you don't want to spend the time and you don't have the means to do that, just keep this enabled every time. Reply to address is something we always keep empty. Daily inbox placement task limit, we keep it to 0 unless we're running a very specific task ourselves. So That's what we recommend that you do as well. And then custom tracking domain, we always add something that does not have the host equal INST. Why is that? Because instantly recommends that you use INST as the host just to keep it standardized. But the problem with that is that every single other person doing cold email is also using INST dot. And so we don't recommend that you do that. Just do something different. We use things such as view or media or join or try or etc, with just anything that is not INST or email or tracking and things like that. Then let's talk about the warm-up. First, the warm-up tag is something you want to refresh often. So every time you open the warm-up settings, I actually suggest that you just click on the generate random tag, generate a new one, and keep on changing it. And then the actual settings. First, increase per day. If you're warming up for the first time, you do want to gradually increase it. Think again like you're building your credit score. You don't want to just go ahead and buy a boat because you won't even have the limit for that. But you don't want to buy massive things all at once. You want to gradually build your reputation. You want to go buy in the supermarket, then at the gas station, then at the mall, and just keep on increasing your spending slowly so that you don't trigger any alerts. And then you want to pay on time. So how do that in the warm-up? You increase per day at a rate. We like to use 4 emails per day as the increase rate. You will have the exact numbers in the spreadsheet that I'll share with you. If you comment down below or send me a DM, I'll send you the exact sheet of the current numbers that we're using. And the reason why I don't show it in the video is because these numbers change all the time. So just shoot me a message and I'll send you the live dashboard that we use. Then the daily warm-up limit. So again, if you're warming up an account for the first time, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sending up to 50 emails per day in the warm-up. And the reply rate, I want anywhere from 30 to 40%. Why 30 and 40%? Is very simple to understand. Imagine you had an email account yourself to contact your friends. Even if they hated you, we could say that 3 out of 10 would reply to you, right? The same is in cold email. We're assuming that 30% of people will actually reply to you. If you're talking to your team, if you're talking to coworkers, if you're talking to other companies that are your clients already, you'd get around a 30% reply rate. So that's what we mimic with the warm-up. Now, talking about advanced settings, we actually always keep the weekends only off because we like to send during the weekends. We found that it helps recover the reputation of our accounts. Read emulation, we always keep on. It's something that can truly help you. Which is, it just mimics human-like behavior inside your accounts when it's reading through emails it receives. Then warm-up custom tracking domain. Again, we keep this enabled. Now, we don't necessarily use custom tracking domain in the campaigns that we send, but we like to keep it in the warm-up so that our warm-up includes links that are warmed up. And that tends to improve our deliverability overall. In terms of the final settings, open rate, spam protection, mark important, you just want to mimic a real inbox. So open rate around 80%, for example. Spam protection, always 100%. And mark important, around 50% or less is what you want to keep. And then you can save, and your account is ready to get warmed up now. So this is exactly everything that you need from the email accounts tab. Keep in mind that you need to do the Seesaw method, which is you need to change your warm-up settings often to reflect the total volume that you want to be sending per day without any spikes in the sending. And again, for that, check out the live table that I can share with you. Just comment down below or send me a DM and I'll send that to you. Okay? Now, let's recap on everything we said so far. You want to diversify your domains. You want to diversify your emails. You will want to use warm-up settings that reflect human-like behavior and maintain your good credit score. You will want to let your accounts age and recommend up to 14 days. Minimum of 14 days, the first time that you're warming up these accounts. And then from there is just monitoring. Remember, you need to diversify everything. And we actually learned this the very hard way. In 2022, we had a lot of accounts set up with an email service provider that was selling inboxes for very cheap. It was $1 per month per email account, which meant that you could get 7 instead of 1 on Google or Microsoft. Now, the problem is, one day I noticed that this email service provider actually got blacklisted by a bigger company. And all of a sudden, I was talking to my business partner and we were discussing just diversifying. And as we were 50% through the migration process to other platforms to be diversified, that platform just got cut out. And in one day, we lost half of our revenue. We had half of our clients that were pending results that we had now to warm up new accounts for. And it was just overall very, very stressful to fulfill them. And so in order for you to avoid the pain, just make sure from the beginning you diversify your accounts. Use instantly set up accounts, use the pre-warmed up accounts, and set up your own accounts in multiple email service providers. Again, if you want to know more about that, check out the video I have linked down below with all of the tips and all of the tools that we use in order to accomplish that. Now, let's move on. We already talked about the warm-up. Again, gradual process, optimal settings. You got to use the Seesaw method. And overall, keep the volume consistent. Never do any spikes in the sending. Don't go from sending 50 emails in the warm-up to sending 100 emails total in the account because you added 50 to the campaigns. That's extremely important. I hope you take this very seriously. Again, this is where 90% of companies stumble. This is why their accounts don't really work. They treat warm-up like a checkbox. They finish it once and they forget about it, but that's not how you're going to do it. If you want to keep your system for a very long time, you follow the steps that I showed you, and you're going to maintain these accounts longer. So now let's get to your campaigns, and your campaigns are exactly like getting your tank into the field. You have a specific checklist. There will be a few steps that are important as you do it. And the steps are very simple. You're going to first start the engine, then you're going to hit the clutch, then you're going to put it in gear, and then you're going to press gas. So in Codimo campaigns, we're going to do it in a few steps. We're going to add clean leads, then we're going to add our compelling copy, then we're going to change the strategic timing of when we're going to be sending these cold emails, then we're going to add the proper settings, and we're going to press gas, which is actually changing the warm-up settings, the Seesaw method that I just told you about. So let's actually look inside instantly what things look like when it comes to launching cold email campaigns. So here in the campaign settings, you want to come to this blue button called Add New. You want to add your campaign. So let's say I'll call this an example campaign. I'll put Don't Touch just to make sure that the team doesn't come in and start changing a few things. And then we're going to have the different tabs for each of the steps of turning on our tank. We're going to have the leads, sequences, which is our cold email scripts, schedule, and options. The notes here are very simple. To add leads, all you're going to do is click on the Add Leads button and upload your CSV. Are you going to upload any CSV? Hell no. You need to upload a CSV file with leads that are, and here's a brief checklist on this. First, they fit your ICP. So the websites actually match the companies that you can sell. Then two, the websites actually load and they exist. Third, the prospects that you have in your list actually still work at these companies. They're not retired. Fourth, your actual contact position titles that can and will be interested in your offer. And then the emails that you got for them are valid and overall are good emails and not spam traps. And then finally, your list is clean, meaning that you're not adding company names such as Nike Sports LLC and mentioning that in your Codimo scripts. That's the easiest way into the spam folder, mainly because you're going to trigger a bunch of spam complaints because you look like a spammer that did not spend the time doing your research right or cleaning your data right. And so therefore, when you're uploading your list, always make sure that you go through this checklist, check for all of the things that I just mentioned. And if you want to know more about that, again, I'll link a video down below that covers that in a lot of depth. And it will show you exactly how you get those leads, what are the tools that we recommend using, and overall, how do you check before you launch. I'm not going to cover in this video, not to make it too long, but make sure you check that other video as well after you finish this one. So you're going to upload your list. Uploading again is very simply going to click on Add Leads, upload CSV, map the columns, and press on import. That's all that you need to do. It will then have a beautiful list here of your list. It's going to check for the max records that these leads have. And the max record is just the address of the email, right? So every domain has a max record, which is the address where it receives the content of the emails that you send to that domain. Very simple. You don't need to go in depth on that. It's just, that's all it does. It's just an address. And then once you did all of that and you got your list in there, it's all very beautiful and clean. We're going to get you the sequences. What are the tips and tricks for the sequence? Number one, if you want to add multiple split tests, you can do that by clicking on Add Variant right here. And if you want to add multiple follow-ups, you want to click on Add Step. And if you wanted to reply to the original thread, you're going to keep the subject line empty at the very top. Now, what are some best practices when it comes to cold email scripts, and what are important things to keep in mind? First, I'll share with you something that works very well for our companies, which is you will want to add subject lines that look like they were sent internally within the company. So things that include first name, things that include quick notes like quick question or thoughts on this or can we talk or things like that that look very human. They don't look like email marketing. One thing you want to avoid is using ChatGPT generated generic copy that looks like everyone else is sending it as well. So avoid anything that looks like email marketing or ChatGPT generated. Just make sure it looks human every single time. One good practice that I'll tell you now, but I'll reemphasize it in the end of this video, is that you want to take the transcript from this video, feed it to ChatGPT 4.0, and then ask it questions and ask it to refine copy or refine your strategy for you based on my advice. That's going to save a lot of time. That's going to get you to move quicker. And again, in business, speed is key. You need to move fast so that you're not eaten by your competitors. Now, let's come back to this. So subject lines. Let's say we're adding here first name dash. So I'd say Felipe dash. Looks like it was sent internally. There is nothing special about the subject line. It just looks like a subject line that's not misleading, does look like email marketing, and it looks like it was sent internally. Then the next trick. Remember I told you that in order to not be seen as an unsolicited sender, which was part of the definition of spam, you need to diversify your sending and you need to make sure that your emails look unique. Well, here's how you implement that. There's a technique called spin syntax, and this technique is very simple. All you're going to do is you're going to add a sentences like this: random, vertical pipe, then variation 1, variation 2, and variation 3, right? And what this is actually doing is it's telling instantly, hey, every time you send an email, I want you to pick from one of these 3 words and send that instead. Now, here is the kicker. When you do this enough times, you will make every single email that you send out look unique. You become this ninja, impossible to track, impossible to skip trace. You just can't know what you're going to send next. And so it's very hard for Google and Microsoft to judge your emails as spammy because all of the emails are different and they might be personalized if you're framing them right. So you will want to add spin syntax. How much? 1 spin syntax per paragraph as the bare minimum. Never less than that. Always more than that. Okay. So you will do, hey, hi, hello. Then let's say you put first name. And then here's a script that overall is pretty good and I recommend that you use. Okay. So, hey, hi, hello. Let me put here first name. Then what you're going to do is if you're doing personalized lines, you can do an icebreaker here, right? If you don't know what this is, it's very simple. It's having personalized lines based on content that you saw online about this company or person, or just a personal note that ties to your script. If you want to know how to create very good icebreakers or personalized lines, I definitely recommend that you check out the video down below on how we do that with a tool called Clay. Now, topic for another video. Again, we don't want to get into too much depth into these things, but definitely go ahead and watch that after this video to learn more. So let's say we do an icebreaker right here. So let me do it again, icebreaker. And then what we're going to do from here is we're going to add the hook, or how I like to call it, a question hook. And that is very simple. For example, are you looking for X, Y, and Z? Right? So are you looking to improve your results with ads? I noticed that you have 50 ads running for over a year and they haven't been refreshed since. Is an example, right? So question hook. Then introduction, let me put it here, introduction of yourself plus offer, then case study, then call to action, then signature, and then we like to add a PS opt-out right here. Or we put the PS opt-out with the call to action, and then we use the actual PS of the email for something that can help convert more. Okay, so you're going to want to spin syntax everything. So let's do an introduction ourselves. I'm Felipe, and I help companies like yours grow their pipeline consistently and predictably with cold email. We've done this for agencies such as competitor 1, competitor 2, and competitor 3, right? And got X specific results. Again, this is not the best script ever. I'm just giving you an idea of what our best framework looks like. Call to action. Let me know if I can send you the exact strategy I think would work for company name to attract more clients, like case study on their website. Thanks. And then I'll put the signature, Felipe, blah, 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 PS opt-out, PS. Are they priority? Let me know. And oops, and I won't reach out again. So this is an example of an email that you could write. Again, this took way longer than I actually expected, but this is the framework that you want to look through, right? Is first name, icebreaker, so greetings, icebreaker, question hook, introduction of yourself plus offer, case study, call to action, signature, and PS opt-out. Again, there is different ways that you can frame this. This is just one of the examples that I wanted to share with you. Now, notice that you will want to have a lot of spin syntax, and you will want to have a very low amount of spam words. How do you know if you have a lot of spam words? It's very simple. You can use a tool such as Mail Tester that will check that for you. You could use tools such as Folderly that will check that for you. But you can Google these names, by the way. Or you could just be running a test on instantly. So you could come in here, click the preview, and send test email or check deliverability score. And it will tell if you have a lot of spam words. It will tell the overall stats of the email that you have written. Cool. Now that we got the sequences, let's get into the schedule. So the schedule is very simple. You will want to, for legal reasons, send during work days, work hours, unless, and again, if you're okay with the legal trouble that could come with this, unless you have a strategy to send in the weekends instead. So for example, we had a client once that was sending emails on Sundays, and this client was saying in the copy, hey, first name, my wife is absolutely going to hate me for being such a workaholic, but I saw your ad with X influencer name and I had to reach out. And this guy was a married guy, of course, he had a daughter as well, and he was reaching out to mom and kid brands, e-commerce brands, and he was pitching them ads, right? So it was a very specific, very well personalized script, although it was sent in bulk, and that worked extremely well. Now, again, you need to be comfortable with people reporting you for sending on weekends, etc. Always check your local laws. This is not legal advice in any way, shape, or form. So always make sure you do your due diligence. But overall, if you want to comply to the biggest extent that you can, work days, work hours, overall. Then let's get into the actual settings before we get into the sending. The settings are very simple. You're going to select all of your accounts at the very top. The settings that we use overall is disabled open tracking. And I know most people think that open tracking is extremely important for you to know how your emails are performing, but I'll actually challenge that. It's as if you were throwing a birthday party and you're sending letter invites, paper invites. Do you care about how many people open the invite or how many people show up to the party? In cold email, do you care about how many people open your email or how many people actually engage and show up on a call excited? Well, if you're tracking the first, you might be just shooting yourself in the foot. But if you're tracking the latter, you might be performing a lot better than everyone else. And that's because what actually matters is the people that show up on calls excited. And this is what most people are getting wrong nowadays. They're just tracking reply rates overall. And then what they're finding is that they are turning off campaigns that are actually good just because they thought the reply rate was bad and they were wasting leads. Whilst in fact, people are overall replying less to cold emails that they don't like and they're not relevant to them. And the right people are still replying. So look at your lead rate more than you look at your reply rate. Again, if your reply rate is abysmal and it's extremely bad, then yes, look at it. But overall, you want to be looking at your lead rate and not open rate or reply rate or link click tracking rate. So that's why we keep these two options here disabled. Then deliver optimizations. If you're not sending any images, we send emails as text only, which is extremely important. The daily limit, we put to a huge number so that it doesn't throttle our sending. And then we come here to the tags. We don't really use this option. And for the time gap, we just put anything that's above 10 minutes and random additional time that's above 3 minutes. That's what we found to work the best across all of our sending. Mainly because if you think like it, if you are a human, I think you are, you won't be sending emails too fast. You won't be sending them every minute unless you're copy pasting. And again, remember, we don't want to look like bulk senders. So we want to have our emails very spaced out. We have campaigns that even have 26 plus minutes of minimum waiting time. And that's what I actually recommend that you do as well. Then from here, we don't prioritize new leads. It doesn't really matter to us. We don't do provider matching anymore. This idea that if you send emails from Outlook to other Outlook accounts, you're going to have better deliverability. Sounded very cool in the beginning. I know why the tools implemented this option, but it didn't really make that much of a difference. And this changes all the time. So my recommendation, also in order not to throttle your sending, is to keep this disabled. We keep the enable company reply stop also disabled. Stop on auto reply also disabled. We want to keep on following up if someone is out of office. We don't insert unsubscribe links in the header, and that's because it destroys your deliverability. And ideally, you're sending emails that are personalized and they're actually good so that you don't need to force these things right here. Again, you're not sending email marketing. You're sending personalized, good outbound, ideally. And in terms of our risky emails, we don't enable any of these options. CC and BCC, we don't enable as well. So from here, you got your whole tank ready to go to war. Now it's just pressing gas. How do we press gas? We save our settings and we go back to the email accounts where we first started and we change the warm-up settings to the settings in the table that you can get access to. If you comment down below or send me a DM, I'll just give you the table. And because it changes constantly, I cannot just give you a table in the video, then you're going to have outdated information. So you're going to use that and then you're on the road. You're well on your way to go to war. Next step, now that you got your campaigns live, the next thing that we got to understand is in terms of lead generation, how do we do catch-all verification? This is a new feature that Instantly has introduced that we use a lot in all of our companies because it's very cost-effective and genuinely very helpful. And it's been so for a while now, which is just stop wasting bullets. And that means that you're going to have emails that you validate with tools such as Use Bouncer, Million Verifier, or even instantly if you want to. And some of those emails will be what we call a catch-all. It's a domain that's set up to catch all emails incoming. And even if it doesn't have a final address you can reach, it will redirect or forward to someone else in the company. Now, some of these are spam traps. Some of these don't work and don't land anywhere. And the way that you can effectively check that is with Instantly. How do you do that? It's very simple. You just import these leads into the campaign like you would import other leads. And then you allow it to validate the leads, right? So when you add them, it's going to have an option at the bottom asking you if you want to validate them. And you click on yes. As soon as it starts validating your leads, it will then give you the final results if the catch-all is good or bad to be used. And that's a feature that we use a lot. Next, let's start reading the battlefield. So let's talk about analytics. The one thing that I think is extremely important here is that you don't fly blind. You need to know when and how to analyze your results, right? And I'll tell you something, data tells a story, but you need to speak the language. Most amateurs just glance at the dashboards whilst the pros actually interrogate the numbers. And it's extremely important that you do the same. You don't want to just look at numbers and be like, okay, this reply rate is bad or that reply rate is good. It doesn't work like that. It's not quantitative, it's qualitative, okay? So you need to have a big sample size and then you need to analyze what are you actually getting from the results in there. So let me give you an example. Let me open the analytics on this account. Here we go. So this is a live analytics. Most people would look at this, and although there is 1,600,000 emails sent, they would just look at the reply rate and be like 7.9% is really bad. But if you actually break down the opportunity amount and how many leads were generated from this campaign, this doesn't look that bad. And so you not only want to look at that, you want to look at what did those opportunities look like? Were people actually excited? In this case, they were. Were they just replying yes, just to get by? Was your call to action very soft? And that's why a lot of people replied. So always be very careful whenever you see gurus posting on Twitter or LinkedIn as well about crazy results that they got. You need to look at what was the batch that was sent and what was the quality of the replies that were gotten and how many of those turn into clients. So here I'm just showing a dashboard of a client that has sent a lot of volume, but you don't want to look just at the numbers. You want to look at the replies. Again, how good they were. And that's how you rate which one is the best cold email that you have, right? Or the best cold email sequence or the best strategy that you have, because you should always be split testing and figuring out which one is the best. Okay. Make sure you don't skip this step. And let's talk about something extremely important right now, which is the UniBox. This is exactly where the deals happen. This is where the deals are made. Now, I like to always refer to this as your campaigns get the door open, and the UniBox is what actually brings the conversations closer to the deals. This is where we end all of the automations and we bring in the human connection and we take over because we are just so close to the money. We don't want to do anything wrong at this point. And this is not where we want to have robots taking over. So I will show you the reply loop that we implement in all of our companies and for all of our clients that gets them to get more replies and overall just get better results, which is actually very simple. We're going to have the hook, which is the campaigns that we've been talking about so far, launching that, get everything live. Then delivering value. We're going to talk about and define that together in a second. Then we're going to follow up promptly until we get a no or a yes. And then we're going to close people. And so this is the game. This is exactly what we need to talk about. And I want to first start with one of the biggest mistakes and the biggest pitfall that a lot of companies make that's almost unbearable to us for us to see that, which is replying slowly. That is the number one deal breaker. And you will see this again and again and again. Whenever you take a long time to reply, a lot of your opportunities will just start slowly dying. And so I like to usually frame it this way. Replying slowly is just like ignoring a qualified customer who walks into your store just because you were too busy organizing the shelves. It just doesn't make sense. And speed is king, and speed is what's going to bring the revenue in. So as soon as someone replies, you want to be very prompt, you want to be quick on your reply, and you want to deliver a lot of value in a very human way. Don't reply just with templates. Don't reply just with copy-paste messages overall that don't feel like a human sat down and wrote them. Also avoid just sending people straight over to a call because you want to respect that some people don't like to communicate in that way. For example, I bet you probably already met someone that just likes to talk on text. No matter what you send them, no matter if you try to call them, they just like to text back and forth and they can talk in very long threads or a lot of back and forth messages overall. And that's just their style of communication. And honestly, if you are a great sales rep, you don't really care about that. It's just, if people want to pay you through text, whatever, let's do it that way. If they want to talk more before they hop on a call, whatever, we go that way. We don't have to only accept people that want to walk our way. It's completely fine. We go the way that they want to go, and we just want to close the deals. And so if it takes more time on tax, doesn't matter. So let's get into the actual value of this. So first of all, I'm going to address some of the most asked questions that we get from clients and overall online based on our videos, starting with to use AI or not to use AI. My honest recommendation is that you don't, because once again, you're so close to the money, you're so close to the deal being made, you don't want any robot mistakes to go through, you don't want to just send very bland responses or something that's out of the box, and therefore it's worth having a human just stay in touch with the prospect until they hop on a call. Now, I'll give you one very simple example of something that happened very recently with one of our clients. We were promoting their services with cold email, and every time someone replied, yes, send me more details, they would just send this copy-paste message which was templated with all of the details about their service. And then we got them over 60 leads in over 2 months, and they were asking us, hey, guys, what do you think is going wrong? And we're like, what do you mean we think it's going wrong? What's happening? And they just plainly told us that no one was closing. They closed 2 deals out of those 60 leads. And we went into their backend and we looked at what was happening. And it was clear to us that the number one constraint they have that was preventing them from closing a lot more clients is their follow-up sequences and is their initial reply. So what we suggested them is that instead of just sending the template as soon as they got a reply, instead, they first asked the question. So for example, let's say someone said, yes, send me more. You would reply with something along the lines of, hey, thanks for letting me know. I'll be sending that over in a few hours. Now, I went on your website and I noticed that you sell X to Y industry. Is that still what you're doing? And you let them reply, oh yeah, that's actually what we do, blah, blah, blah. You now started a conversation, and you're way more likely to continue the conversation until you get them on a call than if you just reply with a template, right? Because when you receive a template back, let's think about the psychology behind it. You're more likely to think, okay, let me save this and let me come back to this later, right? And so unless your problem is actually like a neck bleeding pain and you really got to solve it fast, like you're churning clients all over the place and this offer is offering to solve that, then yes, you reply instantly. But if not, you might as well just ignore it. Why not just give it a minute, right? And so this is the way that we want to think about this. Let's always start a connection and a human interaction before we get into the templated stuff, before we get into the details of things. Also, we always want to make sure that we're showing absolute competency when we're replying. And so let's talk about what should we be sending. What we should be sending is value, ideas, personalization. This is also where you can bring back the competitor names and that type of stuff. It makes a lot of sense to add it in here. And in terms of what not to do, you just don't want to be an annoying sales rep. I'm pretty sure that if you already gotten a few sales calls, you probably hate a lot of sales reps out there because they're just annoying. They just want to sell you. They just want your money. They just want to get your pocket. And so you need to do the absolute opposite. You need to do the opposite strategy of what they do. So what do? They bump people. They follow up with people just saying, circling back on this. Did you have a chance to see my email? Hey, can you get back to me on this? Hey, did you think about this? Hey, can we talk this time? Hey, can we talk that time? They just follow up. And so what you're going to do instead is you're going to generate value. Hey, I just browsed your website and I saw that you launched X product. That's pretty cool. Based on previous results from another brand with the exact product, I think you could crush it if you run ads to this location, that location, that location with this type of creative and that type of creative. Now, I also got some other crazy ideas that I think would be very relevant for your company. How about we talk about this on Thursday, 3 p.m., right? Notice how much better this is than the just, hey, circling back, did you have the time to read my previous email? You see what I'm saying? I hope you do. So that is exactly what we want to be doing. This is the time that you share ideas. You wrap case studies that are similar to theirs. You mentioned some competitor stats. You mentioned something you saw on their website. You mentioned crazy ideas that you have. You show absolute competency. Now, after that, how often should you follow up? Our recommendation, honestly, is that you follow up every 3 to 4 days and increasing the buffer as you follow up more times, up to 6 times. You will see a lot of diminishing returns you follow up more than 6 times. And so we recommend staying on that range. And in terms of how you do that with Instant AI, let me show you right now. So let's open our UniBox right here. We have a lot of opportunities listed already. Let's open one of them and I'll just show you. So you're going to have the reply in here. And the way you want to reply, this is extremely important. Pay attention to this. It's not by clicking the reply button. Is actually by clicking the toggle next to it and click on reply all. This will help you reply to everyone that's within the thread. Let's say the person replied to you and CC'd someone else. This is the only way you're going to be replying to both and not looking like an annoying sales rep that's just chasing one person. So that is how you want to do it, and then you want to add the content. Memes work great in replies. I'm going to be very honest with you. We add this a lot. If you want to see the memes that we add, just send me a DM. I'm happy to send them over to you. Not a problem. So make sure you do that. And then the second best feature of the UniBox from Instantly is going to be the remind me if they don't reply. So this is the button that you can toggle at the very bottom. If no reply in X amount of time, then remind me to follow up. We use this every single time. Always use this. Quick note, if you're replying and you're replying with attachments or photos, just make sure they're not too big in size, right? Just make sure they're not like 5 megabytes or more. That's going to definitely hurt a lot your deliverability, even if you already land in primary inbox. So keep that in mind. Also, this is not the time for you to send all of the spamminess, all of your pricing, all of that crazy stuff, because it again can land in spam, even if you did everything right up to this point. So bear that in mind. If people are ghosting you right after you start appointment setting phase, it might be because of what you're sending. So always consider it. And if you really need to send a bunch of spammy stuff and a bunch of salesy stuff, make sure you put that in a Google Doc and send them Google Doc link instead. Okay. Another feature that we always use in the UniBox, and you definitely need to as well, is the categorization feature. This feature right here is going to allow you to categorize leads. And I'll be honest with you, whenever we want to close a client, the first thing that we do is hit everyone up that's inside this interested category right here. This is what we call our hot list. If you don't have a hot list, I can guarantee you that you're leaving money on the table every single month, okay? However way that you categorize your hot list, if that's on your calendar, if that's on paper, if that's on your CRM, you need to have a hot list. Follow up promptly, follow up with value and competency, okay? Next features that are helpful here, you can move this lead into a subsequence or to another campaign if you want to relaunch them, if they were out of office, for example. You can add notes for your team, and you can delete them or add them to a block list. Now that I already talked about add them to a subsequence, I want to define that before we continue this conversation about the UniBox and get into CRMs and etc. So subsequences is a feature that you find inside the campaign tab on Instantly, and it allows you to create another separate sequence based on a trigger. For example, someone replied that they are out of office. You can automatically add them to a subsequence that reaches out to them as soon as they're back in the office. Someone replied that they're not interested right now. You can add them to a subsequence where you follow up with them at the time that they want to talk again. Let's say another example. Someone replies with, hey, I'm already working on agency. You could have a subsequence ready for that as well. You don't need to craft responses every single time from scratch. And you do that from, again, inside the campaign tab. There's going to be a second tab called subsequences. It only appears for you after you launch the campaign. So keep that in mind. Coming back to the UniBox. One thing I see a lot of you guys do that I don't recommend that you do is to forward responses to your primary account. Why don't I recommend that? It's very simple. It's because the moment that you CC yourself, you're showing Google and Microsoft, hey, look at the account that I'm impersonating. Avoid doing that at all costs. You do not want to point back to anything that relates to you until someone has booked a call and now you have opt-in and now you have permission to reach out to them from your primary domain. Up until that point, keep the conversation within the UniBox, keep the conversation within Instantly, and only when they book a call, you move them over to your CRM. That's when you also move them over to your primary domain. And so by now, you should already be very aware of how you can get a lot of replies, how you can launch successful cold email campaigns, put your army out there, get into the battlefield, and win the game. So from here, we're going to talk about how can we make better moves and make sure that our whole equipment is well maintained and will not fall apart whenever we get into the battlefield. So let's talk about, let me move this right here. Let's talk about some advanced tactics and scaling mechanisms. These are your underground operations, if you want to call them that way, which are going to be very simple. Number one, inbox placement tasks to take a look into your deliverability every once in a while. I'm going to explain that further in a second. Then deliverability settings, advanced settings that most people don't see in Instant AI that are very helpful to you. And then putting everything on Autopilot, which is the API automation. It's pretty much cloning yourself and making this machine run without you. So without further ado, let's talk about inbox placement tasks first. I will tell you my takeaways before we actually get into them, which is we don't really do too many inbox placement tasks for the reason that inboxes nowadays are very unique, and Google and Microsoft have a lot of insight into what users react to, and they will personalize the inbox experience to that. So for example, if you're someone that replies to a lot of cold emails, you're more likely to get cold emails landing in your primary inbox. If you are someone that receives cold messaging and you tend to report it as spam very quickly, you're someone that's less likely to receive a lot of spam in your inbox, no matter how good the reputation of the person sending is. Or sometimes you're going to have companies that have different spam filters that will be checking for different things in your messaging. And what that does is it makes inbox placement tasks somewhat irrelevant. Not completely irrelevant, somewhat irrelevant. So you don't want to rely on that completely to know if your results are good. What you want to do instead is you want to compare newly created accounts that are fully diversified and that were set up the proper way against your older accounts. So whenever you want to test your deliverability, you test a new batch of accounts against your old batch of accounts. And what do you monitor? The lead rate. Now, how many people do you contact to monitor that? Minimum 500. If you contact less than 500 people, it's still irrelevant. I know if you have a small TAM, total addressable market, that might be complicated, but even then, you need to keep this in mind. You need to contact 500 people with 2 different batches of accounts, and then 500 each batch, by the way, and then you will know somewhat where your deliverability stands against those accounts. Extremely important, and those accounts have to be fully diversified, which, by the way, if you want to know more about that, check out the video. It's going to be linked down below, okay? So make sure you're doing that when it comes to inbox placement tasks. And if you want to know the purpose of doing inbox placement tasks on Instantly, we actually do those to check if we are running into black hole type of situations where our emails are not landing anywhere, which is a thing that happens in cold email. And so we do launch them every time we finish a big campaign. That's when we come into Instantly, and I'm going to show you. We go to inbox placement tasks right here. We go to add new. We add one. So let's call this example right here. We do one that is one-time task. And then let me move something out of the way here. Then we do run from Instantly, right? Use those accounts. And we're going to continue. We're going to select the region that we are targeting overall. Going to select the ESPs, going to keep all of the spam filters on, and we're going to send a task. Whenever we notice that emails are not coming in from the task, we know that our accounts are flagged, and therefore we have to fix them. So this is how we use inbox placement tasks effectively to help us figure out if our accounts are burnt. But apart from that, the only other way that we task is comparing different batches of accounts with previous batches of accounts, okay? And I'll be honest with you, once you know how to interpret your data like this, you stop guessing and you actually start scaling with confidence, okay? Next, let's talk about some advanced deliverability settings that will be very helpful for you. Let me pull this up and I'm gonna show you. You can find these right here. If you come to the settings, you then click on advanced deliverability and you see this. So let me break them down one by one. First, AI lead filtering. Unlikely to reply, we always set to send last. There is a benefit of contacting people that are more likely to reply early on in your campaigns in order to build up your reputation and your credit score, and then reach out to the ones that are less likely to reply. So we overall always keep this option to send last. The other option that Instantly has, which we love, is hostile prospects. So Instantly is monitoring across the board what are the most hostile prospects to multiple users, and they're letting you know when you can either skip reaching out to them or when you could send last to them. So we always put it to send last for the same reason that we keep unlikely to reply as send last. And next, we have deliverability optimizations. These are disable open tracking, enable ESP matching, always send first email text only, server and IP sharing, and rotation. So disable open tracking, we don't really use this because we define this in the campaign. That's where we disable it. So you could keep this on. Enable ESP matching, we always have off for the same reason we discussed earlier. Always send first email text only. We keep this off because sometimes we send images in the first email. And yes, if anyone tells you that you cannot do that, they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to cold email. Because we send very successful campaigns with images on email 1, and they outperform all of the campaigns of the people that are talking about not doing this. So think of that. Next one. Server and IP sharing and rotation, we always keep it as pro because we are in the pro plan and it's worth keeping it on. So that is something that I recommend that you follow. This has helped us overall. And now let's talk about the most weighted topic, at least the topic that I get DM'd about the most, which is how do we automate everything and put it on autopilot? The way I like to say is you can set up a hands-free cold email clone of yourself, that will scale your outbound without breaking a bunch of stuff. So where would you implement automation? You would implement automation on lead finding, lead scoring, lead validation, lead cleaning, auto uploading to Instantly, then auto changing the campaign settings, auto changing the warm-up settings, auto managing the campaign, auto monitoring for bad results, auto stopping bad campaigns, auto scaling good campaigns, and etc. If you want a guide exactly on how to implement every single one of these API endpoints and every single one of these automations, I'll be more than happy to do that. All you need to do in order to get that is let me know down below which automations tool you'd like to see a video on. It could be Make, it could be NADen, it could be Zapier, it could be Custom Code. We have all 4 of them in our company, and we would be more than happy to show you exactly how to implement those yourself. So just let me know, and I'll be happy to show you all of that. Now, I'll be honest, by this point, you know more than 99% of founders and SDRs out there, but knowledge is not the same as winning. So if you want the exact SOP on how we operate this, you want to see the checklist, you want to see the breakdown of everything I talked about, and you want to get implementing, just drop a comment down below or send me a DM. More than happy to send that your way. Now, I also will link down a video on how I send 30,000 plus cold emails every single day for our clients, and some tips and tricks and settings that we recommend that you use as well. So feel free to check that out, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.